Hi guys, the episode that you're just about to listen to is generously sponsored by our affiliates Board Game Crate. Board Game Crate provide a monthly subscription service where they get fresh new games delivered straight to your door. Just head over to www.boardgamecrate.co.uk, and furthermore, if you use our discount code UnluckyFrogIsAwesome, all lowercase, all one word, you'll get a cheeky little discount. It's easy to remember because it's true.
Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Porter, joined this week by co-host Charlotte Porter.
Hello.
And we also have a guest for this regular show,
a very
don't we?
special guest.
Yes, we are joined by Shazz, owner and operator of Settlers Hamilton. How are we doing, Shazz?
Oh, thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, doing the rounds of the Scottish podcast scene at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was speaking to another cast. I don't know. Am I allowed to say their name?
Of course you are.
Yeah. Okay. So I was having a chat with Rich over at We're Not Wizards. So
yeah,
that was good.
He's a good lad.
He is a good lad, is Richard.
He's a strange lad, but a good one all the same. Yeah. He knows we love him. It's all in good taste.
All in good taste.
So, before we get into the nitty-gritty of running a gaming shop, why don't we talk a bit about what we've been up to?
What have we been up to? It doesn't seem that long since the last episode went out.
No, but since the last episode, I have actually played a historical game.
Yes.
Called 1066, Tears to Many Mothers.
Yeah. That's Hall or Nothing Productions.
It is, yep. Tristan Hall was the designer on that one, along with a slew of artists.
Yeah.
As the name would suggest, it's the Battle of Hastings.
Yep.
But it takes the form of a card game.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So you get some really, really nice artwork. They've gone for... It is all like generated images. Yeah. But it's sort of photorealistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's got quite a dark aesthetic to it, which is appropriate because it's the Dark Ages.
Exactly.
After all.
That's Hall or Nothing Productions.
Tristan Hall's company, Hall or Nothing Productions.
Yeah, Lifeform and Gloom of Kilforth.
I don't think I have met him, unfortunately. I don't get out of the shop as much as I'd like sometimes, but I'm not a total shut-in or anything, but I haven't had a chance to, unfortunately. But maybe in the future, maybe at UK Games Expo in the future or something like that.
Yeah.
He is based in Manchester.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more the I say more the English conventions, as if there's a slew of Scottish conventions, but you know what I mean. He's orientated more around England. So we first met him at Aircon.
Yeah,
I think
I
didn't
need
we?
to go to that. I hear so many great things about that.
Yes, it's very good. We're going this year as well.
I think if you're into the open gaming and the sort of social element of things, then Aircon's a good one to go to. And I think some of the retailers do all right out of it, but it's where UK Games Expo is a bit of everything. Aircon's more about the open gaming. I feel
it's quite relaxed as well. It's quite a relaxed sort of atmosphere.
Yeah, it's pretty zen. Especially compared to UK Games Expo.
So I was just thinking there that actually we've not played very many historical games, have we?
Probably not. I think we've played games that probably have historical elements. I mean, because I'm thinking like Citadels. Yeah. That's essentially like a medieval court, and you're sort of playing through all the intrigue and subterfuge that went with the
being in the court.
Yeah, but is there a pug present?
There may be. Can you hear her? Is she that loud? Oh my goodness! I'm so sorry. She's having a good snort. For those of you who don't know, I have a little pug called Beatrice, and she's very chill right now. She's having I'm just like patting her head, and she's sitting on my lap and stuff. And I honestly did not think you could hear that. I'm so sorry.
There you go. Unlucky frog listeners, meet Beatrice.
Yeah. We usually actually have our tortoise. Our tortoise gets a bit active at night
for some reason,
and we'll start climbing his enclosure. You can hear it in the background. He's sort of like scrabbling to get out.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. I did not think you could hear that. My microphone's quite good.
Don't worry.
There we go. So we actually have two guests on the podcast.
Yes. I've met Beatrice actually. She's lovely.
Met Beatrice, haven't you? In a lot of ways, she's like the shop mascot,
yeah,
isn't she?
That is her job title. She earns her keep. She works for her money. She is not a freeloader. She's a working girl. But no.
Well, she had like a utility jacket on or something when I saw her. She had like a coat with lots of little pockets and stuff.
That's right. Yeah. No, we keep her busy. Her job is to bring people into the store and make them feel comfy. So, in a sense, she does it very well. She often jumps up at the front of the door and barks at people and shouts at them to come in. And when they do come in, she gives them big cuddles, like she's doing just now. Yeah. She's giving me the old lick and snort. So, yeah, I still cannot believe that you heard her snoring there. That is so bad.
Because I remember that actually from meeting her that she's not too in your face. She just does her own wee thing.
Yeah, she tends to, give you the big hello and then, okay, you're decent.
Yeah,
I'll go back to doing my day job, that kind of thing. So right now she's just been on a big walk and she's having a bit of a snooze. So,
or maybe once you're in the door, she's just like sucker and trots away.
My work here is done. Yeah.
I've earned my keep.
Yeah. But, 1066. Here's to many mothers.
Yes. Here's to many mothers.
So. Although it's the main event of that year in history is the Battle of Hastings, it's actually like you play through a mini campaign leading up to and culminating in the Battle of Hastings. So it's an asymmetrical game. It's Saxons versus Normans. The Saxons under the command of King Harold, and then the Normans under the command of William the Conqueror. Apparently, before the Battle of Hastings, he was known as William the Bastard.
Oh, okay. But then he conquered.
Yeah, and it's that whole thing about history is written by the victors, right?
That's true.
But I found that quite interesting because he actually was illegitimate,
right?
William the Conqueror. Because this is the cool thing is that all of the cards have got a bit of flavour text, but it's facts.
That's
right.
Cool.
Yeah.
About the Battle of Hastings and the people that were involved in it.
They've obviously done a lot of research into it because it looks really pretty, and they've obviously. I was overhearing you playing it with Josh.
Yeah.
And you would play your card, but then you would always read the flavour text, and it would be like such and such was a defendant of this, or was the friar at this church, and it was just really interesting.
That is cool, actually. I mean, you can tell that that's a real labour of love, and I love games like that. The people, they're not there to just churn out games. They're there to just really put out and publish something they want to publish on Kickstarter because it's the first chance they've had to really do it and just go for it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. And what I found quite strange was a lot of the time when you think about military games, particularly historical games, you think of people like really nerding out about strategy and all that, but in a weird way, that sort of took a back seat to the admiring the pretty pictures and learning all these facts and things about the Battle of Hastings. But William the Conqueror, he actually was illegitimate.
I think that's really important. Again, just the whole design aspect. I feel like a lot of war games focus on the strategy and things. But I think like there's real scope to get more people into games through the art side and the history side of things. Yeah. So I think that's definitely cool that they've taken that focus.
Yeah.
You make a great point because that's the kind of thing that I actually think it really should be in classrooms.
Yeah.
A game like 1066 because it puts me in the mind of there was a cartoon, I think it was in the New Yorker or something like that, and you have all these animals lined up. There's like an ostrich, a monkey, giraffe, penguin, elephant, and then there's an invigilator with a clipboard in front of them, and he says, in the interest of fairness, you're all going to sit the same exam. Now climb this tree. I say that to say that we're aware and have been for a long time that there are different learning styles, but we still insist on sitting kids in front of a textbook and having some old guy talk at them for 2 hours and expect them to learn.
As a former teacher, I absolutely get where you're coming from. I completely agree, and I think there are other ways, and there's a lot of discussion, at least in teaching side of things, on what the one best way is. But I agree, it certainly doesn't involve boxing people into a classroom.
I did not know you used to be a teacher.
I did. I used to teach ESOL. It's a wee bit different to regular teaching. So ESOL, just for those who aren't aware, it's speaking English to non-English speakers, essentially, or teaching English to non-English speakers. So I taught in a couple of different countries, but my main focus was in Japan for a while, and I taught there for 2 years. So yeah. There you go, a little bit of trivia.
Fantastic, yeah. Because I know as well there's a lot of D&D in the classroom, especially in America. There's a lot of rise in that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I talked earlier on about Aircon. I met a chap called Graham, and he sold me some fighting fantasy books. Oh
yes, it was Arian Games?
I think it was, yeah. And I got talking to him for a while, because I was saying that the reason that I wanted to buy them was that I was too young when they were really first popular. Kind of missed the bus on it, and given how popular D&D and all that sort of thing is now, it naturally come to my attention again. It was something that I wanted to explore, and he was saying that these fighting fantasy books were credited with improving the literacy of boys in the 80s, because he said back then. Video games was an emergent media, and a lot of parents were freaking out about the amount of time that their boys were spending in front of boxes. And so the fighting fantasy books were this weird compromise, because they're reading a book, but the boys felt they were sort of cheating the system because they were still playing a game.
That definitely resonates. As a kid who grew up in the 80s, that resonates with me and my family. We had 2 boys, me and my brother, and we were hooked on those fighting fantasy books. And they absolutely paved the way for us into other games and other sort of literary kind of achievements and things. So, that really resonates completely.
That's really
and
cool.
the conversation with Graham then naturally progressed on to Dungeons and Dragons, because, like you're saying, Shazz, like those fighting fantasy books were like a gateway for a lot of boys into other games. Yeah. But he was then saying that all these boys that and there'd be some girls, it was predominantly boys in the 80s though, that played D&D, they knew the names of all medieval weaponry, because they had to learn all the different types of pole arms, so they could go, that's a halberd, that's a trident, and they could rhyme off all these different weapon types. So albeit it's a fictional universe, it's still grounded in our reality, and it's like Gary Gygax, when he was first coming up with creatures and things to inhabit this world, he just pulled them all from folklore throughout the world. So there's a lot of valuable stuff within D&D. It's a potential learning experience. So D&D in the classroom, I think, can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
Holland's a really interesting country to watch education-wise, particularly because they actually, LARP or live action role play is almost kind of mainstream in that area of the world. So it's really interesting to see how that's impacted and affected things, and how parents have taken to the kind of group activity aspect of live action roleplay and kind of got behind it rather than shied away from it. So just the idea that live action roleplay is not a niche thing in any part of the world, to me is absolutely blows my mind. I think that's really cool. And I think there's a lot of scope for the stuff that we do. To really just piggyback on what teachers are doing, whether that's games, like for example, there's a couple of really good Kickstarters and self-published games recently, like Vote Me, that we stock that do really, really well in classrooms and things. And there's a lot of scope there, and I feel like it's almost like a social anxiety or a social fear that keeps people from really embracing it and really, just giving it a try, which is a shame, really. But at the same time, it gives us a lot of scope to pay that forward and take that example from countries like Holland in the future.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you hear a lot of these sort of urban myths and horror stories about LARPing, don't you? It's one of these things that it makes even like the nerdiest people sort of raise their eyebrows. Oh, you're into LARPing, are you? Like,
yeah.
I always remember.
Light a bolt.
Yeah. The one horror story I heard, and I'm fairly certain, I hope it's not true, and it was it was the usual. My friend's sister. I'm like, all right, okay, it was a friend's sister. Yeah. Went down to England and she was doing LARPing, and she came back riddled.
I was thinking it was we were having a really good tone of episode there. We're talking about education, we're talking about all these things, and then you just lower the tone completely.
Well, someone had to. So
I used to LARP a lot actually, and it's not for me anymore. But I think there's definitely a value to it if it's taken that way. For the most part, from what I've seen, LARPs seems to be a really good excuse, a really social excuse just to meet up and get drunk, and that's there's nothing wrong with that, that's totally fine. But I think if we're looking back at Holland and examples like that, there's definitely scope there to take it away from that and horror stories and stuff like that, Whether they're true or not, I don't know. It's possible, but
yeah, that's. Do you know where I've noticed that LARPing is really big? Actually, is in Poland.
Oh yes.
Oh, cool.
They actually have, and I would love to try this. They have a Witcher school.
Cool.
There's a group that regularly do Warhammer Fantasy LARPing. So you have these guys all done up like Empire generals and knights and all that, the big feathered caps and everything. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
If that tickles your fancy, I'm sure there's a local 40k LARP nearby in Scotland somewhere. I forget the name, but I know some of my friends go to it. I'll need to dig that up for you.
I think we know a lot of people that would be really into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very popular.
You get to look into it, certainly. Yeah. So we have gone off on a tangent, but
let's go full circle.
I suppose we should talk to Shazz about running a shop, shouldn't we?
Oh man, jeez, it's come to this.
Yeah. So how did you end up running a gaming shop, Shazz?
It was a crazy mistake. No, I did. No, in all seriousness, it was essentially So I came back. I mentioned I did ESOL stuff, and came back in 2012 to this country, and wasn't the best career choice for someone coming back to this country. So eventually, what that led to was I kind of came back to the country, and I'm really passionate about games in general. So I sort of looked around for different games clubs and areas, and I couldn't really find as many as I thought there would be. I thought that there would be this massive growth due to the rise in geek culture, Big Bang Theory, Marvel movies, etc. And that didn't really happen from what I could see. So from there, I kind of made it my mission to just go and find different games clubs, and so I did. And then hooked them all up and put them on a Facebook page where they could all kind of talk to each other and share each other's, activities and things. And from there, we realized that there was a need for a games club in Lanarkshire, at which point I founded Lanarkshire Gamers in about 2013, I think it was. Lanarkshire Gamers just grew and grew and grew, from one club to 2 clubs to 3 clubs in different areas. And, it kind of convinced me that there was this demand, this need for spaces, and there was something really powerful about gaming that had the power to bring people together. And after that, I also realized as well that it was a lot of time, however, it was the same people, the same gamers. Yeah. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's just that it wasn't growing gaming. And as a result, I kind of went, well, if I want to grow gaming and I'm serious about it, 1, I should put my money where my mouth is, and 2, I should plant a flag in South Lanarkshire somewhere to really grow gaming. And so I did. I went with it. We decided to go with the Games and Combat Cafe model because we wanted to tap into things that people would know, but also give them something accessible that non-gamers, for example, could come and enjoy. And here we are today. 4 years on. It's been fun.
Well, we've been to Settlers a couple of times actually, and I was just thinking the last time I was there under my Play Fusion hat, and I was actually quite surprised that some people just came in for a cuppa. and just sat at the side, had a wee coffee, and then went on their way. And it felt really nice. It felt really welcoming. That it wasn't just gaming. You could just come in and have a coffee.
That, I mean, I was aware that was going to happen, but I didn't expect it to happen on the level it happened.
Yeah.
So what we find is on Saturdays, I think it was a Saturday and last, that you tend to find the Yu-Gi-Oh players, they have parents that come in and bring them in, or Pokemon players and so on. So younger people, and essentially they'll come in and they'll sit sometimes for hours doing crosswords and stuff, or on their phones or knitting and things like that, while having a coffee. Maybe they have no interest in gaming, but that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It would be great to get them into Yu-Gi-Oh! It would be Pokemon, but if they're not into it, why exclude them?
Yeah.
So one of the things I've noticed about Settlers is that you run a lot of Pokemon stuff. You've mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh! You mentioned the parents, actually. How important is it to be engaging kids in tabletop gaming?
So sorry, she's snorting away. So I don't know if you heard it. Sorry. So with regards to kids, I think it's important. Actually, though, when we started, I actually didn't sell any Pokemon when I first started. I was quite closed in on certain games and topics, and as we realized going forward, how important Pokemon was to getting people to an accessibility and something they would recognize before they stepped in through our doors. So we realized that was definitely a massive hole in our armor. It was a chink in our armor. But I think it's important, not just in a sort of to continue gaming as a generational thing where you're moving from kids to teenagers and to adults and stuff, not just in a practical sort of business sense, but I think it's really important, as we mentioned, we discussed sort of education side of things.
Yeah.
And I think there are sort of not secondary, I want to say hidden benefits that a lot of people don't notice about gaming. For example, there are parents whose children have maybe some real difficulty connecting with other kids, but through Pokemon, through Yu-Gi-Oh, they've had absolutely no problems. And so there's all these sort of secondary benefits that come with having a hobby. And I guess you could say it applies to any hobby. I mean, you could get these kids doing judo, I suppose, but for some kids that doesn't work. And so it's very, very important to have tabletop gaming as an outlet for people who fit into that bracket, who want to take part in that kind of thing. Some of us are more into football, some of us are more into judo or whatever, some of us are more into dancing. But it's only fair that other kids are maybe a wee bit more cerebral, or they like patterns and they want to kind of focus on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Settlers is primarily a shop. Although, you've got the coffee shop side of it. But running a tabletop gaming shop is not quite like running any other retail shop. Is it fair to say that you quite often end up as a sort of arbiter within the community?
There are so many... I've got like a little sort of Facebook sort of live stream thing I do every Sunday, and this topic comes up a lot. Maybe not so much arbitering, but just generally the human factor, the human element, the chaos of people coming in and like actively engaging in the shop and spending significant amounts of time there, almost like a pub, for example.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can happen that. The human element that they take away from the process of a business. So if you look at, for example, let's say McDonald's, it's very process driven. It's very, how can I get your order to step A, to step B, to step C until they've got their food and they're out the door. Yeah.
It's like the sausage factory, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, conveyor belt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas, the game shop or the pub is the exact opposite of that. It's very, you've got to get questions that are so random. They're all going to be fired at you. They are very off the wall. I could be asked if I know about a comic from the 40s and whether I'm willing to take it in or not. And be expected to answer that, whereas same could be said for games, so there's a lot of things, and I think what we have to do as arbiters is, rather than being an arbiter, what you risk being is you risk being the kind of big ugly ogre that kind of, you know, shouts at people and stuff. And you really don't want to be that. You know, people are there to enjoy it. So you have to, at least in my experience, we have to write processes into what we do to calm down the kind of chaos of lots of people in one space. So for us, for example, an example of that might be for a code of conduct, for example. A lot of shops nowadays are starting, for good practice, to have a code of conduct. And that way, if someone challenges either me or a member of staff, well, I can say, well, listen, it's not just me. You know, you're not arguing with me. There's a piece of paper on the wall that says, this is how we do things here. Yeah. So there's that. There's all these other things as well. But at the end of the day, there is an element of arbitering, absolutely, because sometimes people don't see what the rules should be, or they don't know, or they have a different expectation. So there's a lot of weird things going on, especially when maybe one game shop is different to another game shop and what they'll allow. Yeah. So there's so much chaos all the time. It's just part and parcel of what we do and part of the human element. So it just is what it is. You know, you just got to kind of try not to be, you know, Judge Dredd, and be more of you know, I'm going to signpost you to this this way of doing things, the way we do things.
Yeah. There you go. A little glimpse into the mind behind Settlers.
It doesn't look that chaotic, having been in.
Maybe I'm over-egging it.
No, I mean that's more of a testament to how well you're managing it. That it just looks pretty much way of it, you know.
It's also nice and clean. Yes. It, you know, I don't like saying it.
Your toilets are especially clean.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't like saying it, but a lot of these places can be a bit dungeony.
So when we first started Settlers, we said to ourselves, what do we want as gamers? And one of the first things that came up was cleanliness. Yeah. Now you wouldn't think that as you know, you normally think something like, oh, we need awesome games and we need great people, you know, but no, cleanliness was high, right up near the top of the list, you know. So as a result, and that's common amongst other people as well, we've canvassed people and asked them, you know, what is it you want from a game shop? And people have said they want clean toilets. Yeah. And so what we did is, that was one of the first things we did at the start, but actually the number of little things we've added to the formula over time has it kind of astounds me when I look back. So, for example, we have deodorants and stuff in the toilets, okay? Mm-hmm. And we never thought of doing that in the first place. But someone came along, someone we knew who ran conventions, Sven, my member of staff, his wife Gail, she used to run conventions, and she said, you know, it's really handy just having loads of deodorants and stuff you can use in the bathrooms. People that way can just use it at their own leisure, and it kind of takes the edge off things. And it does. It works. It's fantastic. And there's loads of little tips and things, like when we run events, you say that the event was ran smoothly. It wasn't like that at first. You know, when we first ran events, there was a lot of teething issues and how we do things. But over time, I think once you get used to and you spot and identify problems, you're able to kind of answer those problems.
Yeah. It's funny you saying about the cleanliness thing, because I think it was not long after we met, Charlotte, and it's, you know, my sort of pre-gaming night routine, one of the things I put aftershave on, and Charlotte, you was a bit like, oh, what are you planning on getting up to tonight?
Are you wearing aftershave?
I've never wearing aftershave. Listen, I'm making a statement. I'm leading by example. The aftershave is on.
Yes.
So,
that's good.
Yeah, that was my little counterculture.
Get kind of dressed up. Well, that's kind of a nice idea. I like that, getting dressed up for game night, treating yourself. Maybe not like a date night, but just treat it like a nice night, and would be once a week, you know, and just going out there.
Yeah. As I see it sort of harkening back to a bit like, you know, my grandfather's generation, where they would put the suit on to go to the bowling club, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The dancing.
Yeah. I'm going to say the thing that I really like about Settlers as well is I don't know what you call it, the Settlers motif or the styling, where it's all blue and white.
It's all uniform.
Oh, yeah. Right. You're going to give me a complex. You guys are so nice. Thank you.
No, but it feels clean. Like, it feels organised, it feels fresh. Not like clinical or anything.
It maybe sounds a bit like we're kissing ass, but seriously, the amount of places that you go to, the amount of gaming venues and things that you go to that are just really dingy.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Well, one of the main things, and I'm not shy about this, is that the new Warhammer's not so bad.
No.
Okay.
Because they've got nice lighting.
Yeah.
But I used to hate going into the old Warhammer because the lighting was so horrible. The windows were almost tinted, so it just felt like you were walking into a dungeon when you were walking in, and it was such an oppressive...
That's a shame. But I really like what Warhammer have done, actually. I mean, with the rebrand stuff. I think that's really clever, actually, and it gets them stepping off my toes as well, because they're leveraging their intellectual property with regards to Warhammer, and they're saying to people, we're not a game store, we're a Warhammer store, and that's really clever, because a lot of people they're so big now that people associate them with that, and as a result, they can do things their own way, that maybe so they don't get compared to like a game shop down the road like mine, for example. So I think that's really clever, and I'm really glad. I haven't been into Warhammer in a while, actually, but I'm really glad that they've freshened up their appearance.
Yeah,
and stuff.
No, it's nice. The new shop's really nice and really actually quite welcoming.
Yeah, it's also the sort of physical manifestation of the turnaround of the whole company ethos. Because I mean, you maybe remember, Shazz, about 6 years ago they shut down all their social media.
Yes, I remember the lawsuits as well. So one of the things that kind of turned me away from the company was I was a big Blood Bowl fan, and there was a number of really powerful, really effective Blood Bowl sites, fan sites at the time, and I remember them getting lawsuits, class action lawsuits and things, and cease and desists, despite them being fan sites that were there to help push the company forward.
The most ridiculous thing about that is they were not actively selling or supporting the game at that time.
Yeah, that's right. So I remember taking a hump with them then, and there was a lot of people doing that at the time. But I'm really glad they've turned it around. They are a beloved brand, and definitely is. Although I don't sell their product in store, I mean, they do a great job. So I'm really glad that they're managing to turn it around.
I really like the marketing that they've taken. Is it for the Uruks? No.
Oh yeah.
Where they've turned it into like it's a BMW advert.
Oh no, it's the orcs, the space orcs. Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen that. What is that, like a trailer?
Yeah. They've done
They brought out a game recently called Speed Freaks, which is a boxed game where I think it's a sort of spiritual successor to Gorka Morka. So it's just orcs and sort of crazy Mad Max style vehicles. But like Charlotte's saying, for the advert that they did to promote the game, they did like a BMW spoof.
Okay.
So it's just like stock footage of
really happy
smiling the family,
an astronaut just walking through a field.
I need to watch this. I'm going to watch this after.
Really
that sounds fantastic.
It's really good. Yeah. But even the fact that they are being a lot more community driven, I think is really.
Even the fact that they're laughing at themselves.
Yeah, that's how you know they're doing good.
Yeah, that seems to be a culture thing. I mean, nowadays I've noticed that on YouTube a lot. Like this culture of laughing at yourself. Like, for example, PewDiePie. PewDiePie is really he's a huge YouTuber, and one of the things that he's that sort of, I don't know, specialists, people who talk about this, kind of critics that talk about YouTube culture, they've been saying how like PewDiePie has been successful and able to overcome scandals because he's able to laugh at himself positively and move on, and that seems to be like a real, I don't know, that seems part of the zeitgeist to me. That seems part of like how things are going to be going forward. You own your kind of errors. So.
Well, I think.
I think you heard that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Beatrice is sounding the end of the podcast there. That is about all we've got time for, unfortunately. Yep. Shazz, thank you very much for coming on the show. But before we wrap up, for people that are interested in Settlers and what you're doing, where should they go?
I would recommend Hamilton Town Centre. We are in Castle Street. The postcode is ML36BU for all your sat navs. But if not, if you want to check us out first, we're on Instagram, Settlers Shop, or on Facebook, Settlers Hamilton. Check us out by all means.
Excellent.
Good.
And we'll have all of those links in the show notes as well.
Good.
But there we are. Shazz, thank you once again for joining us. Thank Beatrice for us as well.
I think she's out for the count.
And for all of our listeners, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi guys, it's Josh from the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast here. Thanks for listening to us, and now be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for the Unlucky Frog Gaming. You can also show your support for Unlucky Frog through Patreon. Be sure to check out our website www.unluckyfrog.com to find out more.
Was that so hard?
Look.